Let's talk about Prince Harry. He has apparently won, well, unprecedented review from the Home Office into his security when he comes to the UK, depending on what he's doing. If he's attending a coronation or a funeral, does he get the armed security that he says he needs? What about if he's on a private visit? Is he worried, as he's always claimed in the court cases, basically against his, well, HM government, that actually can't bring his wife and children to this country because he cannot have armed or guaranteed armed security and feels unsafe. So let's talk about this right now with a man who knows all about Royal Protection. He's the former head of Royal Protection, Davies. Good afternoon to you.
Hello, good afternoon.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. So, first of all, do you think that Prince Harry does need armed protection, regardless of whether the Home Office? Do you think, in your experience, that he needs that protection?
Great answer, no.
Why not?
Unless the intelligence and information has changed, he does not require it, because the number of occasions in this country since 1974, any of the armed officers who had to pull out their gun, to my knowledge, is zero. So in other words, all the others have managed perfectly well for over 50-odd years, 60 years, without any of their officers, some of them are armed, of course, pulling out those guns. So it's an absolute nonsense to say that he requires it on this particular occasion.
But isn't the knowledge that someone, a public figure has got armed officers, that makes them safer in itself from attack? Because he does have two. A, he's very high profile. He is the son of the king. He was the grandson of the late Queen. But also, B, very crucially, he fought in Afghanistan. He's also written in his memoirs, I think most veterans have said very unwisely about the number of kills he had. Does that not make him a specific target?
No, I don't think it makes him specific any more than a number of others. Generals, SAS people, you name it. There are so many people who you could say may require some kind of protection. Now, again, for somebody who wants protection, he keeps a very high profile. I always advise then and now, if you want protection in any shape or form, keep a low profile.
Oh, but you can't. If you're Prince Harry, I mean, look, I'd like them both to go away and shut up and have that private life they promised us they wanted when they went for Megxit. But to a certain extent, he can't be that private. He turns up in the country, it's on the front page of the newspapers.
Well, with great respect, yes, he can, and sometimes does, without you knowing it and I knowing it. But he can and does, and again, there's a fallacy to say that he's totally unprotected.
Yeah.
He gets, firstly, a liaison officer. If he gives 30 days notice, then they will review the event. They will look at where he's going, what the likelihood of any kind of attack is. But I say again, it is so rare, and others, including Uncle Andrew now, has no protection.
Yeah.
He's arguably high profile too. He served in the Balkans. I could go on and on.
Yeah.
A number of the royals now, what we used to regard as senior, and in my day we protected 22 of them full time. Now that has been reduced. Now somebody much wiser than I made that decision, rightly or wrongly. But again, we go back to him. He gets protection, did get protection from the Metropolitan Police the last time he was here in September. For whatever reason, they deemed it appropriate. And I think it's sensible. Look at the event, look what he's doing. Is it private? Is it for his father, the king? And then decide the appropriate level. That's what I would do.
Right. No, that's very interesting. I've always, it's one of the funny things, that I've got very little time for Harry or Meghan, but what I've always thought was, because he did fight for his country and it wasn't his choice to be born a royal prince, that actually his security and security of his family seemed to me to be a reasonable thing that we would just have to cover. That said, I find it extraordinary that for years Nigel Farage and other prominent politicians on the right have needed security, and that's not being provided by the state, even though there were clear threats. I just worry, like, it's one of those things where it's all perfectly safe until it isn't, and we seem to very rarely have any ability to. I mean, I know that the authorities do foil a lot of attacks, but they don't foil every terror attack. They don't foil every criminal act. That he is too high a target, and the knowledge that he hasn't got armed guards means that he is more at risk.
Well, if he has a liaison officer, and if that liaison officer is with him, he may well be armed. And again, those surrounding him, both In America, I presume they are armed, but here they're all ex-royalty protection officers.
Yeah.
A number of them are. Certainly the team leaders are, and they have the requisite knowledge and ability. But I say again, you've got to look at history, learn the lessons of history, and what I'm trying to say to all of you is the fact that the number of occasions you have to draw a firearm as a protection officer in the last 50 years is zilch.
Yeah.
So we've got to set a sense of proportion. When we can't afford X, Y, and Z for pensioners and all the rest of it, I don't want this multimillionaire to get the kind of protection which I would give to Nigel on the state, because, well, I think personally he's doing a good job most of the time. And then I'd give it to him, and I'd give it to anyone else. We protect former prime ministers like Liz Truss. They get full-time protection. Tony Blair gets it. Huge amount, probably more than the king. So we got to have a sense of proportion based on knowledge, advice, and history. And I'm saying if I was in charge, he wouldn't get it unless somebody could show me he really required it. I say again, keep a low profile, come to this country quietly, succinctly, don't open your window and wave at people in an armoured car. Etc. I could go on and on it, but we've got to have common sense here, which unfortunately is sadly lacking in those in authority in this country at the moment.
Does appear to be the case. Di Davies, so good to talk to you. Thank you, former head of Royal Protection. Appreciate that. Sam Armstrong, what do you make of this? Because I hold no candle for these people, but I've always thought they feel they need, not if they feel, if they are at risk, and he's clearly at risk. But Di Davies, look, he knows his stuff. He knows it.
Yeah, and actually, I think there is a broader point, which is that, and I'm sorry for putting it this highly, but I think Harry turned his back on his country. He decided, despite being born into a life of extraordinary privilege and being given a job in life, which was to be
I wouldn't wish being a royal on my worst enemy.
Do you know what? Nor would I, but look at what the late Queen did. Look at the life of service that she displayed. She didn't choose it.
He was the spare.
So,
no, I've got very little time for it. I'm just saying, I don't care what he does. He could be completely useless, and has turned out to be fairly. But at the end of the day, he fought for the country. He wasn't just sitting around. He wasn't being a playboy. And I'm sorry.
And then his job,
I think we need to know he's safe. Di Davies reckons he is safe. So.
And then his job was to go out and serve the country in precisely the way that the royal family have served this country for a very long time. He turned his back on it. For him to now turn around and say that I should subsidise his security arrangements.
No, he's actually said he'd be happy to pay for it.
Okay, for him to turn around and say that metropolitan police officers should put themselves in danger, which he says is there, to go around looking after him, I think is wrong. Do you know what? If you're born a royal, there's good sides, there's bad sides, but I expect you to do your duty.
I think it'd be really nice if you're allowed to choose your own job that you want to do. You're not basically told you have to do. I again wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. 12:47 is the time. My only big worry is if he does get the security, he's going to bring Meghan back, isn't he? He's going to bring her back with the kids. We might get to see the kids' faces. You never know. I'll live without it.
Well, it would be nice for the king if that happens, of course.
I do think it's
still
absolutely extreme. You've got the same with Meghan. Their kids basically don't know their grandparents on one side of the family.
One of them is dying in a hospital. I think it's disgraceful. I think it's deplorable. But these people, generally, Harry and Meghan believe that they appeared out of nowhere. They're totally individual people. No, you're part of a family.
I've got no time for this, like withholding your children from from the grandparents. Very absolutely bizarre.